All right, our learning goes on. Mitzvah Shem. We don't stop. Sorry about the last week or so with traveling with the engagement and other traveling and everything. So we'll try to do our best to catch up. We'll do part today and Mitzvah Shem part Thursday, and hopefully we'll catch up to where we're at in the going through the Shulchan Aruch. So we're starting with Siman Reish Pei Hey. Schar mitzvah mezuzah. Mitzvah say lichtov shma v'hayim shemoya. The two parshios that are in the mezuzah are those two parshios of Shema and v'hayim shemoya. The kavam on mezuzah sabayis. So the lashon of the Shulchan Aruch is mashma that it's a mitzvah of ksivas mezuzah. Besides the mitzvah of kviyas mezuzah, putting it up, it's a mitzvah to write it down. That's the lashon of Shulchan Aruch. And but the lashon of the Rambam and the Chinuch, they leave out the words lichtov and they say it's mitzvah likboya mezuzah, which really is based on the Targum. The Targum is on the pasuk says that l'shavtam al mezuzah b'secha v'sharecha. So the lashon of Targum is, he says over there that v'tichtavun al mezuzahim v'tikveinu b'pischei beisecha. The Targum adds in the word v'tikveun, v'kovea the mezuzah, and so the Medayik from the Targum, he puts that in, that we see that really the Kavanas HaTorah is that the Ksivas HaMezuzah is not really a chelik of mitzvahs mezuzah. It's a hechsher mitzvah. It's a hechatimtzah to have a mezuzah to put up. But there's no mitzvah for you yourself to write. Let's say like Sefer Torah, there's a mitzvah to write your own Sefer Torah. Shas Hayim Kaim that, you can buy buying Svarim or actual mezuzah, actual Sefer Torah. If you have a sofer write a Sefer Torah, you should have him write it when you're shlichus, you kaveah him to be right because it's a mitzvah, ksiva Sefer Torah. But by mezuzah, the poskim take on that it's not a mitzvah of ksivas mezuzah. There's no mitzvah to, let's say, to ask a sofer or to appoint a sofer to write the mezuzah for you, specifically for you to put up in your house, which there would be if there really was a mitzvah of ksiva. So the lashon Shulchan Aruch is lav dafka. But in mitzvah say lichtov b'shmaya, in other words, a chetimtza in order to l'kavam mezuzah b'Pesach. There is a shaila in the Das Kedoshim, although he takes on this way also. It's not a chelik of the mitzvah. He has a suffix that perhaps it is a midas chasidus to be mamana shliach to write the mezuzah for you. Not mitzad achiyuv, but mitzad midas chasidus. But the Gedulei Hektish, the parish on the Das Kedoshim, he has many kashas on that, and he says that no such thing. We don't find such a thing in the poskim at all. There's no mitzvah of the ksiva. That's only chatim. So you're welcome to walk into any bookstore as long as you know that it's muhsak, that it's kosher. Which that's a big problem. On just to point out on the sides. You're involved with NCSY kids and families aren't so from. Just an important thing to point out that keep in mind when you see people that are going to buy mezuzahs and tefillin, to help them out to get it from a kosher place, because if they buy it from the JCC bookstore, so then in the best case it's regular, it's stam puzzle. In the worst case, it's which really is no nafkamina lalacha. It's just printed on a piece of paper, or people even found comic book strips rolled up inside tefillin. So these cheaper tefillin that people have. So there's no limit to what you can find out there. You walk in the average JCC bookstore, it's just a photocopy on a piece of paper that's in there in the mezuzahs, or it's these kaviyachol with a stamp on it. You take one look at it and you see there's more osios that are puzzle in it than are kosher in it. So we have to always buy from a sofer muhsak. And I tell people sometimes when they get a new house and then they ask for mezuzahs, and they get shocked when they start telling how much it costs. And I asked them, how much did you pay for the paint job? How much did you pay for the extra ornaments and everything like that? So you're a Jew, so the main ornaments in your house should be, if you have a beautiful entryway and a beautiful foyer, and so also beautiful mezuzahs, the way to put it for you have to just express it to them in a way they can understand it. But this is just begetter a hechatimtzah, it's begetter a hechsher mitzvah, klape the actual mitzvah of putting up the mezuzah, and that's the maskana of the achronim. All right, now the Taz brings down the tour that when the Shulchan Aruch ends off saying that tzarich li zarba ma'od, v'kol ha'zayir ba, Yarichu Yamav, Yamei Banov, in Azara by Yitzarenu. So mezuzah is a thing that brings Arichus Yamim. The Torah ends off that parsha with saying the man Yarichu Yamecha. So it's there it says Allah Adama. It's not just talking about Eretz Yisrael, but in general, it brings Arichus Yamim to a person that's Nizar in mitzvahs mezuzah. So that would seem to be enough. That's really the greatest thing you could hope for is Arichus Yamim. But the Torah ends off Gedolim Mizu, even greater than that the Bayis Nishmar Al Yada. It's even greater than that. So the question is, why is that greater than that? The Beis Yosef is bothered by why should that be greater that the Bayis is Nishmar, then you have Arichas Yomim. So the Beis Yosef says two pshatim. One is that it's considered a Nes Nigle, that even though you can actually look and see that people have mezuzahs are living longer than those who don't, that would be get a Nes Nigle. So that's a Gedolim Mizu mitzad the pirsum of the Kodesh Baruch Hu's dominion over the world. That'd be like a Nes Galui, Bismanenu, which we don't have very many of those. And secondly, that like the Gemara tells us by the Maisa of Unklos Ager, that the way he got the Roman legions to convert and to leave him alone was when he kissed the mezuzah on the way out, or touched it on the way out. Didn't say kissed it, so touched it. The Gemara in Avodah Zarah that they said, "What's that about?" And he told them that the way of a king is that the king sits inside and the people guard him outside. But here by us, we sit inside and Hashem guards us from the outside. And that got them to be Megayer. So that's Gedolim Yezu that we see, then Hagas Hashem, that it's different than a regular king, that he guards us. And that's Gedolim Yezu inside the Hashkachas Hashem over us. So those are the two pshatim in the Beis Yosef, while the Torah says Gedolim Yezu. And the Taz said a third pshat, that it brings a person to the constant reminder of Yichud Hashem, and that you are Gedolim Yezu, that if the protection goes on, even that you're not actually osik in that mitzvah, you're not actively putting it up. When you're sleeping in the house, you're just in the house. You're not thinking about mezuzah at all, but it's still megan on you. And even though by shar mitzvahs we say that a mitzvah only protects you while you're doing it, not bizman she'enu osik ba, be'idnik da'al osik ba. By mezuzah, it's not true. By mezuzah, it's megan alav even bizman shelo osik ba, even when you're not involved in it. As long as you're in the house, the Makaimis is mezuzah, and you are surrounded by it and protected by it. So that's also a reason to say Gedolim Yezu, that it shows that it has a aspect that's above all other mitzvahs. This might be totally these different pshatim might be totally on what we've discussed in the past, whether it's considered a mitzvah timidis, it's a constant mitzvah, or it's like we discussed with the Magen Avraham and the Arizal, with David and Melech, who's Musuva b'mitzvahs, and the question is at night. So he's not wearing his tzitzis. The question is it only in the base of Merchatz he wasn't Musuva b'mitzvahs? The Arizal is Medayek. At home he must be. Why is he? So the Arizal said because he must be wearing tzitzis at night. The Magen Avraham was docha that he's Musuva b'mitzvahs at night, even without tzitzis. If he's has a mezuzah on the door, he's still mesuva b'mitzvahs, which means that it shows that mezuzah is a mitzvah tmidis. It's a constant mitzvah, even while you're not osik in it, you're sound asleep, but it's considered it's like a mitzvah. We'll see later on, also even a mitzvah, but it should be gufo possibly, that you have mezuzah surrounding you, because it surrounds the entire house. And as we saw also, the Rambam and the Enihil's mezuzah, which goes together with this Taz, that by having the mezuzah on the door, you have a constant reminder of the Yichud Hashem, and it's makes sense to say that gufa is the shmira. The shmira is that you're connected to the Yichud Hashem. You're constantly reminded every time you walk in and out of a room, then you remember that there's mezuzah up, and you remember the Yichud Hashem. Like I told you over the Maisa with Shmuel Auerbach, that a friend of mine was walking in with him, Bayer Fredman. They were going from one room to the other in his house. They had to move. They were sitting in one room. They had to move to another room. So when Shmuel got to the doorway, he stopped for a moment and stood there, and then he walked in. So he said, "Ra Ma'asav Niskar Halacha," that he saw the way he walked into a room. You don't just walk into a room, but you stop for a moment and think about the mezuzah, think about the Yichud Hashem, and then you walk in the room. And that reminder, gufa of Yichud Hashem, so that Nefesh HaChaim speaks by Richos about how the thought of Yichud Hashem, that is a protector from the most terrible, dangerous things. Like there's a Maisa in the Gemara that one of the Amoraim was was standing there, and a sorceress came along. She started digging a hole around, like a circle around him, to put a hex on him, and it didn't bother him. Nothing happened. He said, "What happened? That never happened before. It always works." He said that in Od Milvado ksiv, and the Gemara says, "Afiluk shafin, even a witchcraft can't touch somebody who's davuk to the Shechina, to the Ein Milvado, because that puts you above anything else. All the powers in the world, including sorcery and witchcraft and everything, those are below Hashem. If you're davuk to Hashem, Yisbarach himself, then you're protected from everything else, which is an important thing during the times that we're in right now. That we should really use that as a reminder to think of Yichud Hashem, to stay protected and stay, above all the craziness around us and the dangers around us, lurking around every corner. This is Maisa I told once before. It's worth repeating with the Brisker Rav, that his son Rav David Shlita, tells over the Maisa that he was running with his father, Brisker Rav, escaping the Nazis, and they had to get over a dangerous border. And as they were sneaking over this border, they were caught by a Nazi, and the Nazi started screaming at them and slapped the Brisker Rav in the face. And then a moment later, another Nazi came and pushed them over the border, and they ran for safety. And when they became safe, then Rav David said to his father, "Tati, was geschehen?" Like, what just happened? So he said, "When I got slapped in the face, it was a wake-up call to me that I wasn't thinking deeply enough in Od Milvado, in Yichud Hashem. So I brought my machshava back to Yichud Hashem, that there's nothing else, no other koach in the world but Hashem, in Od Milvado. And when I got double to that machshava, then the other Nazi came and pushed us through." So you see that machshava is a protector for the worst things, and that could really be the soda, the protection of the house by a mezuzah, because that's the Yichud Hashem, that really the thought of Yichud Hashem that we have when we walk in the door, that really is protecting the house. And that takes us to, now, just a few more points here. The Piskei Tshuva brings to the Pri Megadim that if a person realizes, like on Shabbos, the mezuzahs fall off, then he says you need to leave the house, which tells us that and other Achronim bring this down, that tells us that if you're in a house without a mezuzah, it's considered a bittul mitzvah. You're actively being mevatel mitzvah mezuzah by being there. He just says that if you have nowhere else to go, then you're like begetter honest, you're allowed to stay. This and hu adin b'chol, if your mezuzah somehow become puzzle or fall off, and you have no way to get mezuzahs during the week, again, according to the Pri Megadim, you'd have to leave your house, not to be mevatel mitzvah, if you have somewhere else to go that has mezuzahs. But if you don't have somewhere else to go, not. But you just see a chiddush for the Pri Megadim, important chiddush, that it's not just a mitzvah to put up a mezuzah, but to be in a house without a mezuzah is considered a bittul aseh. It's a very big chiddush and a very important chiddush. Now, Rabbi Kiveger here speaks at great length, which I didn't put that in my Makomos. It's really a long thing to go through, but just to summarize this, just to know the subject that he talks about. He talks about the Ramah says that if ein yada maseges liknos tefillin mezuzah yikne tefillin v'lo mezuzah, the mitzvah she chovas aguf adifa. Mitzvah is that a mezuzah is not a chovas aguf. It's not doesn't go on your. Well, the question is, what does that call chovas aguf? We say that tefillin is adif. If you have the choice of two, the tefillin is adif because it's chovas aguf. That's what the Ramah says. So the Kveger speaks here about it is pshat in chovas aguf, meaning that it's a chovas gavra. I mean, it's a chiyuv on the gavra, as opposed to, let's say, certain mitzvahs are just a mitzvah and the totzah and the outcome. But let's say b'dikas chametz, you can make a shliach to do b'dikas chametz, getting close to Pesach, because it's not a mitzvah shebagufo to do b'dikas chametz. You just need that the chametz got checked. So I can make a shliach to check my chametz. I can't make a shliach to shake my lulav, because it's a chiyuv on the gavra to shake your own lulav. You can't make a shliach to shake your lulav, or to eat your matzah, or any of those mitzvahs. Those are called as a chovas gavra. So potentially we could. The other pshat is that mitzvah shebagufo means not that it's a chovas gavra, but it means it's a mitzvah on your goof that actually sits on your goof, which makes it it's makadosh your goof more than something that's outside of your goof. So the nafkamina that which obviously tefillin is wrapped on your goof and a mezuzah is not. So that would be a more understandable shot, because I can't have someone else do mezuzah for me. True, they can put it up for me, but I need to live in the mezuzah. I need to have I can't have someone else send a shliach to live in a house for mezuzah for me. I'm only kind of mezuzah when I'm living in a house beisecha. I'm with derech biyascha. You have to go into that house. It's a chovas adar. It's a chiyuv on the gavra, a chiyuv on the dar to go into that house and be there, like Rashi learns. But we did have a discussion. The Tosa said that the chovas adar meant that it's a dira shadaribo, but it's a really chiyuv on the bais. So that whole Sha'al and Rishona that we had previously really goes into this question of Reb Yeager. What's the pshat in mitzvah shebegufo? Does it mean there's a chiyuv gavra like a lulav, or does it mean that it's actually sits on your body? And we just mentioned before, the question of the Magen Avram and the Arizal, that according to the Magen Avram, you're considered to be Makayim in the mitzvah. You're enwrapped in the mitzvah, like bris milah is on you, so also mezuzah is around you at night. And the Arizal seem to maintain that not that way, that it's different. It's different than like the tzitzis that are actually on your body. So perhaps the Arizal is learning that the chiyuv gavra is the mitzvah shebegufo. It means that it's a chiyuv gavra, but it's not a question of being enwrapped. You're not considered wrapped with it. It's just an interesting discussion, but because so many of these questions touch back onto each other, they're really connected. But that's a long discussion here in Reb Yeager. The Maisa the post can take on that Bisman Hazeh, even though the Ramah Paskin is that tefillin is adif, Bisman Hazeh, that we only wear tefillin while we're davening. We don't sit and wear tefillin all day like they used to. So then, if you're able to borrow tefillin from somebody during davening, then it's better to have a mezuzah on your house, because that you can't just, that you need all day and all night. I was thinking the tefillin you can just borrow for an hour or half an hour, depending how long you daven, and you're going to say that way. So today it's preferable to have a mezuzah and borrow someone else's tefillin. Okay, and lastly over here, that the poskim say that it's a mitzvah to, based on the Gemara, the makar from the Gemara in Avodah Zarah from Onkelos, that he touched the mezuzah on the way out. Onkelos wouldn't have done that unless it's a mitzvah to do that. So we see that it is a mitzvah to touch it. And the Arizal, it's brought down, B'Shem the Arizal, the poskim will bring down, that when a person goes on a trip, then they should touch the mezuzah on the way out if you're taking a trip, and say, B'Shimcha tel ataleh, which is a gematria for the words that are behind the bixas kuzu, the words that are behind the mezuzah. If you take a look at those words, so it's considered a special shmira. I personally know to say when I go on a trip, touch the mezuzah on the way out, because I didn't say Hashem Yishmor Tzeischa ve'echa mi'atav yad olam. I forgot where I saw that brought down, that Hashem should be shomer us on the way out and the way back. Okay, and now in Sif Beis, we're not going to go back into this again. We spoke about it by Richus in the previous shirim, that it's the Nisinasa b'tefach hachitzon, and here the Ramah, I put the end before the beginning. I spoke about the Ramah about the putting your hand there, but the tefach hachitzon. So we had two svoras in the Rishonim and the Achronim. If it's because it should be pogea mitzvah tchila, to have the mitzvah come, you approach the mitzvah as early as possible, and therefore it should be as far out as possible and outside tefach. And the Gemara even had a havamina to put it outside of there, which some explain that to be, according to the second shot, that it's not just to be pogea the mitzvah earlier, but it's in order to have more shmira, that as far out as it is, then that's shomer the bais even further out, the extremities of the house from the outside. And we had a discussion before. Some Rishonim held, some Achronim held that this is a din deraisa. The question is, where is that deraisa? But we brought Rav Vosner that said it's for sure only midrabanan, and others said also it might be the kuva, or you have to move it if it's on the outside. Which again, we saw a discussion in poskim about that. We don't necessarily need to do that, but it's nice to, if possible, to have it where it belongs. And we also saw a discussion about this, whether it belongs to the inside rooms as well as a din tefach chitzon. So we saw the Klosenberger had a long discussion about that. We saw in Marmakumos previously that he brought shame his father or grandfather, I think, that it doesn't apply to the inside rooms. Another postscript said that it did, because if it's a svara of having more shmira on the house, then you already have the shmira in the house and the outside doors. So then it's just a question of having it there. It's as long as it's nishmar, it's nishmar. There's no inyan. But others held no, that it's to be pogea b'mitzvah tchila, and so that would belong. If ad kama there's a mitzvah in every room, then you want to have the mitzvah as soon as possible, and therefore would apply to the inside rooms, and that's how we take on as well.
Rabbi, who says the pogea mitzvah tchila? Because the Taz brings down the bias being protected. Who brings down?
I would have to look back.
So does he argue, or the Taz was just going with? Meaning, are they? Because there are differences between the two reasons. So is the Taz arguing?
Yeah, there are enough kaminas. I have to look back again, and the Klosenberger brought that down. If you remember, in the Arichos, Stadan Lakan. He brought that whole discussion down. I remember now who said that beferish.
Was it Rashi? Wasn't it like one of the?
Yeah, I think it was Rashi.
Okay.
Rashi brought a couple time in. Yeah, I have to look back in the sugya.
Okay.
All right. So again, like the idea of this year will be just to talk about certain points. Obviously, we can't cover everything we did before because we're just, we just want to have a little chazara and just cover some points maybe we didn't perhaps talk about earlier as well. All right, starting Reish Pei Vav. Elu Makomos Shechayavim Mezuzah Echad Shari Batim V'Shari Chatzeros Medinos Vayaros Refes Bakar V'Lulim V'Otzos Yayin V'Shemen V'Beisa Isha V'Beisa Shutfim Kulam Chayavim. So a whole potpourri of different types of chiyuvim over here that the Shulchan Aruch puts together, and that they all have this chiyuv. Now, just to talk about a couple of shals on the poskim, the Piskei Tshuva and Rabbi Kiveger speak about a jail, Beis Asurim, whether it's chayav or not. And there was a whole discussion we discussed in the past, whether some say that it should be pater because it's a dir b'al korchai, and others are docha that because dir b'al korchai was not lahalacha. That was according to Yehuda, according to the Chamim, dir b'al korchai shma dira. And it was for other reasons, because like kedusha or whatever that we pater over there, lishkas for hadrin, but not because of dir b'al korchai. And others said that it should be pater because it's aroy, it's diras aroy Beis Asurim, and then we saw in the discussion we saw that many poskim were cholek on that because often, unfortunately, it's not diras aroy. So, and those who wanted to say diras aroy wanted to compare it to a bais shivasfina. The Rambam says bais shivasfina is pater, and the Stipler, we questioned before, and others as well said that a bais shivasfina also should be chayav if for the sailors and the captain that are there both in Kavua more than 30 days or even longer, that Baisha V'Sina, even though the Sina moves, but the Bais on the Sina is Kavua, and they live there in Kavua, so it will be Chayav, and Mila Beis Asurim would be no different. There's no raya from there for Keret, that itself would be Chayav. And the Aruch HaShulchan also Paskins Pasha, the Beis Asurim is Chayav. I guess it depends if they allow you to put it up. But we mentioned, unfortunately, Lo Aleinu, it is nogea to a lot of from people that might, for one reason or the other, be in Beis Asurim today. That there would be a chiyuv mezuzah if they're sometimes not at all as a diras aray, unfortunately. And another shiloh was here in the Ramah. The Ramah says that the Shulchan Aruch the Paskins is that Beis Shutfim, a partnership, is chayav dafka kisha Beis Shutfim Yisraelin. Of a Baishal Yisrael, but of a Kachavim Patim is as the Ramah says. If it's a Shutfus, Yisrael and a Goy, then it's Pater. So here we spoke about before that the Gra points out that the Shitas Arashba is that it's Chayav, And the Aruch HaShulchan as well brings the Rashba down. He has a huge, big kasha on the Ramah. How can you just decide that it's patur against the Rashba and the Mordechai? The Gra and the Aruch HaShulchan paskin that it is chayiv if it's a shutfus with an akum. And part of this for to say that it's patur should be that some say you don't have a bayis shalem. Some are say that it's like each part of the house you don't have a part that's roy to live in, because every molecule, every centimeter is owned by the Jew and the Goy together. But the Gra and the Aruch HaShulchan don't go that way. The Rashba, that if you're living there, especially if you have your own room to be living in that house, then for sure it's not even a question that you'll be chayiv. So in Meila Nafkamina also is if you have a chutzner, they say that you have Goyim and Yidden living there. So the question is those shari chatzeros that the Bach and the Shach want to say that patur, like in Krakow and these other places, the Bach we saw at length, they said that because the Goyim take it away and it's sakana, etc. But and it's also shutfus akum. So, but according to this psak, they say that today the Goyim allow us to stay there. So then these places, these chatzeros of Goyim and Jews together would be chayav. Okay, the question of a cheresh ktanim. So let's close the door. People here. The Aruch HaShulchan starts off saying that a room that's by ktanim, that they're not chayav mitzvahs, is chayav mitzvah mitzvahs chinuch. But this will only be if the katan lives on his own, lives by himself. Then it will only be a chiyav chinuch. So then there's for some reason a katan has his own house or something like that. But if it's a Diras Yisrael, it's like just one of the rooms, and the katan has his own bedroom. Let's say the poskim say that when they say bayis, that's translated today as a room. When they say bayis, they mean a room, not a whole house. But if it's just a room in the house, and everyone else is living there, then the Aruch HaShulchan says that's pashut that it's chayav min Torah, because just like I have a chiyav deraisa. The Aruch HaShulchan holds the davar pashut that basic tevin and these things these things refus bakar etc. They're all chayav min deraisa. He starts off saying that lav dafka where you live, but also the things you need for your living are all chayav deraisa. When it says beisecha, it means all the chelkei hadira, all things you need to live, including your basic. You need straw, and you need wood for your fireplace, etc. Those are all things you need to live. So those are chayav deraisa, and for sure, kol sheken, the rooms that your kids live in, your bedrooms of your kids, even though they themselves don't have a chiyuv, or they only have a chiyuv mitzad chinuch, but the Baal Habayis has a chiyuv deraisa. That's the chelik his dira, where his kids should be living there. That's the pashut. And Mamela, he says even further, the Aruch HaShulchan, that a place that you have rooms for, let's say you have a live-in maid or something, they're not Jewish maid. So like with Avadim Mishpachas, he says, then they'll also be chayav deraisa for the same reason, that's a room that you need to have your maid live in order to help you in your dira. So that becomes a chiyuv deraisa as well for those people. And Mamela, he says, he holds that if you have rooms that you rent out, and it's usually goyim, let's say you have an Airbnb section of your house, and it's not clear if he means even if you have a separate house that way, but certainly if you have a part of your house, like the back of the house, you have a separate entry and you have people come in. So he holds that would be a chiyuv deraisa to have mezuzahs on there, even if usually goyim come in, because that's part of like your basic tevin and your or let's say if you would have a place that you keep your wares, then to sell, etc. in your house, and that would also be a chiyuv deraisa as a chiyuv of your dira. So that's a chiddush of the Aruch HaShulchan. Okay. Now, also in the Shulchan Aruch it says that the shari batim, shari chatzeros, shari medinos, and ayoros are all chayav. So the pashtus, the Rov Rishonim seem to learn that that's a chiyuv deraisa as well. We spoke out once that the Ritva and the Ran hold that it's only chiyuv derabanan. But the shita of the Rif and the Rambam is that they're chayav agav the houses. If those are considered away, and the Rambam says even 10 sha'arim that eventually gets to the house, then it's like we expand the chiyuv on the house all the way out to all the sha'arim that are the way to get to the house. So even though the Shar HaMedina is quite far from your own house, since that's the way to enter the Medina and to get into your city and get into your house, then it's Chayav Agav the houses. Obviously, if it's a Jewish entry, a Jewish place. In the Aruch HaShulchan as well, it goes that as a Davar Pashat that these are Chayav Deraisa. Now, when we talk over here about Shari Chatzeros, then we had the Machlokas whether the Chatzer is Chayav Agav the house. That was the Chazon Ish's Mahalach. But we had a diuk from the Rush. The Chazon Ish learned the Rush differently. The way we learned the Rush and the Shulchan Aruch is that it's a Chiyuv B'fnei Atzmai. The Chatzer has its own Chiyuv. And that also is a Chiyuv Deraisa. Because that's, you do Tashmishim there, and so that's considered like a chelik of the house, but not Agav the house, but it's its own importance of a Chatzer. That's what you do Tashmishim. And the Chazon Ish also says that that only the only chiyuv would be on the chatzeros shalahem, and the only chiyuv would be on the chatzeros that they had in those days that they mamish, they hung the laundry there, and they did a lot of things in their chatzeros. Today that we just walk through them, we don't do very much in the chatzeros, like a real tashmishi bais in the chatzeros. Then they're really maker a din that should be pater, but most poskim don't hold that way. And I think today we do quite a bit in our chatzeros, like in our backyards, where barbecues and people sit out there and have outside chairs and things and spend time there to be ba'avir. So Rav Poskin hold that the chatzeros today are chayav as well mitzad atzmam. And lastly, and last nakuda here is that the refes bakar, these stalls for the bakar. So we're saying over here, the Poskim say even though it's a place that's meluchlach with the tzayas abakar, still it's chayav. And the Poskim asked that what's enough community between this and the basic kisei. We're going to learn soon the din of basic kisei coming up. The sif dalid is pater. So why should that be different? And why should only be? We say that it's only pater here if nashim rochtzas behem. But on its own, it should be chayav. So why is it different than a basic kisei? So the yisod that comes out, the maram shik, we spoke out once, is that the nafkamina is that these things are be'etzem adiras covered. To have a place for your cattle is a mechubedika thing. Just agav orche, it's not there for the sake of lichluk. It just happens to be that's a byproduct of it. But that's not the purpose is to have a place to bring your bakar to. Masha Enkin a basic kisei, the tachlis is to be a basic kisei. The tachlis of that room is to be a place of lichluch, and therefore it's not a diras kavod. The Gemara said in Yuma that if something was not a diras kavod, then it's patur from mezuzah. So that'll be the nafkamina that all these things that are chayav, all these places are chayav. They have a din diras kavod, and a basic kisei is enu diras kavod. The mice of the poskim say that I'm not sure at what point it changed, but they said that today the refes bakar that we have is much more meluchlach than it was at that time. And if it gets to the point that it's that meluchlach, then it's pater as well, because it's like it becomes like a basic kisei. But mitzad the din of the Shulchan Aruch, it's the chilik is diras kavod, and the sif dalid basic kisei is not diras kavod. We'll see more about that and get to sif dalid. Okay, now going on to sif beis. You say base of Tevin, and base of Eitzim, base of Bakar, Chayavim, Yevnashim, Rochtas Behem, Kim Sha'amdu B'Sham, Amdu Sham, Arumois, in Kavod Shamayim, Leo Sham Mezuzah. Okay, so it's an interesting Lashon, in Kavod Shamayim, which is Lashon Rashi. It says in Kavod Shamayim because it's not based on what the Ramah says, on which comes from the Beis Yosef. The Ramah says, Dafka Elu, Avacheder Mamish, Afilu Makom, Isha Yeshenim, Mishtamshin Sham, Chayav Mezuzah. This is only because it's these types of places, Beis Tevin, Beis Eitzim. But if the lashon of the Beis Yosef was, if it's a dira gemura, it's a full dira mamish. That's what he says, cheder mamish or dira mamish. So then it's chayav even if these things go on over there, because according to the Beis Yosef, and that's where Mal's bringing it down, is that the tour of these places, if it is the whole tachlis of a room is to be a Beis Tevin. So even though it's chayav, and according to the Aruch HaShulchan, it's chayav in deraisa, because the chiyuv mezuzah is extended to all these secondary places, it's still not a dira gemura, right? You don't really live in a base of tevin or a base of eitzim, but agav the house it's chayav, and perhaps the chiyuv that we have over there is to have a ribui kvod shemayim. To have it even in the places you don't actually live, it's a ribui kvod shemayim. But when you add, since it's already a quasi dira to begin with, it's not a full dira. And you add to the fact that it's also now a place that omdim rumos is a place that you do rechitza and omdim rumos, then it becomes ein kvod shemayim, that this quasi dira is no longer a kvod shemayim to have a mezuzah there. But you can't say that by a dira mamish, that its chiyuv is not just a ribui kvod shemayim, it's a chiyuv mamish, a regular chiyuv mezuzah, pashat chiyuv mezuzah, then and it's a diras covered. So the fact that somebody might take a bath there doesn't take away from the fact that it's a dira gemura and it's a full chiyuv. That's the shita of the Beis Yosef and with our mouth bringing down over here. And Masha Enken, the second dia, the Ramah says v'yesh omrim mekilim v'omrim d'chol makom shenashim shoch was pater mezuzah. Some say that all these places are pater, and the reason we saw there from the Bach held that the ikar tam over here is not that it's chaser in the shem dira, but that it's tali in bizayin kisya kodesh. It's a bizayin to the mezuzah, but poil that you're mabazah the mezuzah to have omdim merumos sham. So according to that applies even by a cheder gomer. It's nothing to do with the chalosh shem cheder. Is it a dira gomer or not? Bach didn't go with that whole malach. Whatever is chayav is chayav. There's no dira gomer or not gomer. There's no such chiluk. The whole chiluk is it considered a bizayin or not? And so mainly, even if it's a dira gemura, according to the Yesh Omrim, Yesh Mekilim, it should be pater. So the Ramah sort of has a shara, and he ends off and says, "V'nirli de malkum shadelas mivifnim, shoch v'sham sogim bedelas nimsa zuzah b'chutz chayv l'kulam." If you're going to close the door, and the mezuzah will be on the outside of the door, so when they rochetz over there, you don't see the mezuzah at all. So then it's not a problem. That's for sure, okay? Because the Ramah is going bisodo, it really is a diras covered. And now you've sort of gotten rid of the problem by closing the door. You close the door on the problem, and the Gra says that would help even for a Sefer Torah, not just for mezuzah. Sefer Torah is much more chomer than mezuzah. It would help to close the door as well. But the poskim take on that, according to the Shach, that the Taz writes by Richos that there shouldn't be a problem at all in the place where Nashim Shochavos, the place where the bedroom were, even though they're going to be Tashmish Isha there. So the Taz learns that that it's considered Bereshus Acheres, and the Aruch HaShulchan even has a stronger time. He writes very strongly that the same Torah that said to put up a mezuzah in your house also said to have tashmish ishto. Obviously, the Torah does not consider that a tashmish bezoi. It's a mitzvah. It's not a bizayon, and especially like the Taz adds in that it's considered, if it's l'malami asar tzvachim, it's bereshus acheres, and kol sheken if it's mechusa, like you said, you put shava, you put wax over it, then you don't have a problem of lo yirah b'cha ervas davar. It's not considered megula to the erva. So then it's not a problem at all. And Aruch HaShulchan, with this taina of a mitzvah, which I'll arrive to the Aruch HaShulchan, is the Ramah in Hilchos Sukkah that says that it's okay to have that it's a mitzvah to have tashmish even in the sukkah, even though it's a makom kaddish, because that's not considered tashmish bazu. It's a mitzvah. So who did l'chora over here? That's l'chora big riot to his svora. So the nafkamina is that the Aruch HaShulchan learns that because of his svora, it's enough to have just one kisui over the mezuzah, because then you're fulfilled with that layer of ever's davar, that the shem Hashem is not megula to the erva. But you don't need to have two kisuyim, like the Magen Avraham says in Siman Mem, that you need to have a kli b'toch kli, which puts it ki'ilu it's a bereshus acheres from the erva. So the Aruch HaShulchan says, according to his Sforah, you don't need that. It's enough to have just one kisui, because kli b'toch kli, but it would be if you're doing something that's really a bizui, but not here that you're doing a mitzvah that the Torah requires. But the mice of the Mishnah Berurah seems to go with the Magen Avraham, and therefore the minig is to have kli b'toch kli. So many have a minhag just to hang something over the mezuzah, shas tashmish. But it's enough to, if you hang up the mezuzah to begin with, to use an opaque mezuzah cover. But inside that, according to the Mishnah Berurah, you can put a covering around the mezuzah to begin with. L'shem kli b'to kli. Yeah, you have kavanah that it's not, besides the usual plastic, the usual nylon or plastic that covers, to keep the mezuzah safe, to put another piece of paper around it, and then l'shem kli b'to kli. And according to Mishnah Berurah, if you me'achad it for that, then it's considered a kli b'to kli. Even though the Chazon Ish is machmer, and that holds that once you put it there to speak kavua, then that's considered yuchad lakach, and it's not kli b'to kli. But Mishnah Berurah paskin is kula. So, but sirif, the svara of the Aruch LaShulchan, you don't need kli b'to kli. Certainly, you can rely on the Mishnah Berurah over here. So you just have to cover the mezuzah with something extra, and then put that inside the mezuzah case. So then it's considered kli b'to kli, and it's not resigning on the mezuzah anymore. Okay. Let's try to go on a little further. In Sif Gimel, we said basic knesses and yeshba dira l'shum adam chayav mezuzah. The shul, if it has a dira l'shum adam, then it's chayav. So just to remember, we had a few svoras in this, that the Shitas Rambam is that that a basic knesses and basic medrash are peturim because they're davar shebekdusha, because of the kedusha shebem. Rov Rishonim held that it's because it's missing diras adam. According to the Svara diras adam, it's very clear why when yeshbo dira l'shum adam, then it becomes chayav. It's missing diras adam. Now you have diras adam, but according to the Rambam, that's because of kedusha. So then that's a little more hard to understand why that's so. So some learn that once it becomes diras adam, then it minimizes the kedusha somewhat, which is a little bit hard to hear. But like the diras adam overrides the kedusha. We saw the Chassam Sofer that learned that it's not a question of overriding, but the kedusha, pshat in the kedusha, the Rambam, the Chassam Sofer is coming to answer the kasha that the kedusha's basic knesses is only midrabanan. So how could that pater echiyah mezuzah deraisa? That's what we saw the kasha in the Chassam Sofer. The Chassam Sofer answered that when the Torah says beisecha, it means that it needs to be a diras adam, and if it's even a basic knesses that's only kedusha derabanan, sof kol sof, it's a makom diras hashchina. It's not diras adam, it's makom diras hashchina. So in a makom diras hashchina, diras Hashem, that's not a diras adam, so it's pater, even though that's a derabanan, but it's not diras adam, it's diras hashchina. So he says, however, if you make a diras adam there, then you don't have that kasaran anymore that's missing diras adam. And that's the way he learns shot more in the Rambam. The last shot was Rashi and Tosas that said that you need to buy some yuchad lo. And they said enough community between the kfarim and the krachim. The kfarim that the shuls are privately owned is considered yuchedes lo, and krachim they're considered publicly owned, so they're pater. The krachim they're chayav, so they're chayav if they're privately owned. And therefore, if you have the chiddush is that even if it's a shel krachim, so then if you have diras adam there, then it's considered miyuchad lo for dira at that point, and that overrides that as well. But the minig is that we put mezuzahs on the shuls, on all the shuls, no matter what. I'm not sure exactly what point that became the minig, because in the Nusach Kelim Shulchan Aruch you didn't see such a thing. I know in Germany that wasn't the minig. The minig was that if there was the shul itself proper that they didn't eat and drink in, they were very strict about that. Then they did not put mezuzahs up in Germany. But the minig today, I heard from our shul first, the minig today is we put up in all the shuls, whether people live there or not. Okay, go on to Sif Daled, Besa Kisei, Besa Merchatz, Besa Bursaki, Besa Tfila, Turim L'She'enu Asurim the Diras Kavod. That's based on the Gemara and Yuma, that you need to have a Diras Kavod. So we already brought from the Chazon Ish, just to remind ourselves, that the Chazon Ish learned that the Pshat and Besa Kisei, the Chazon Ish is discussing the shaila of if Besa Kisei is not mechubadik, but Lamaisa, according to Rabbi Kiva Eger, that if you have a small closet, let's say, that it's pater mitzad atzmo, but it opens into a bigger room, so that it should be chayav on the way into the room. So make it that the basic kisei should be pater. Fine, it's pater, but put it on the other side on the way into the room. You're worried about the cover of the mezuzah, so cover it. Make a klib to klib, whatever, cover the mezuzah, and should be chayav. So answers the Chazon Ish is different. A closet is pater because it's pater be'etzem. It's not a beis dira. Masha'enken, we see from the Gemara, he wants to be medayek that a basic kisei is a beis dira. It's just not dira's covered. So since it has a beis dira, then the chiyuv and the mezuzah, for sure, if there would be one, it would only be on the way in. But since it's not, when Rukveger say there's a chiyuv on the way to the room, that's if the room is not a dira at all. So then agav, it's batal to the bigger room, to the one that is. Here it is a dira. And Chazon Ish holds even if it's less than dalad al dalad, because it's a royal tashmisha, like we saw from some poskim. But certainly the chiyuv would be on the way in, not on the way out. And the way in, it's not dira's covered, and therefore it has no chiyuv at all, because it can't be. You're not, because we see from the shach. The shach says that the shach in Yud Aleph, when he says that when something's not dira's covered, he says the words p'turim b'mezuzah ve'ein lasos b'mezuzah. It's pater, and you shouldn't do it. You're not allowed to do it. And the Aruch HaShulchan learns that shach saying that not only it's not that it's just pater, but it's up to you. But it's usher. No, it's usher. It's not up to you to be machmer. To machmer would be usher. And a dir she'enishal covered, it becomes usher. Now, a big nafkamina in this, and the fact that that's the yisod. It's not just a tour, but it's usher, because this room is actually it's a pucka for the chiyuv mezuzah. So then we have a shaila of if you have a bathroom that has a small sink next to it to wash, is that room chayiv or not? Would you put a mezuzah in that room? Let's say it is dalad, whatever. But get away from that problem. Would that be chayiv or not? So it's brought down B'Shem Rebelsky, B'Shem Moshe Feinstein's. That's all that a room that's just for netilas yadayim for the bathroom. That's all it's for. Then it's pater because it's batal to the bathroom. It's batal to the bathroom, and masha enken if it's, let's say sometimes you'll have like in the bathrooms of wedding halls, right, or bigger places. So then you'll have that people. It's for the bathroom, but it's also for people who come and wash for mutzi there. So it's the people do, or the people go there just to look at it, to freshen up a little bit, and it's like they're nice rooms or whatever. So they're not just for the bathroom. They have other shimushim besides the bathroom, and then they're not batal to the bathroom. Rav Shmuel first said that he holds that the praba, like the determining factor, the litmus test, whether it's batal or not, is if you lock the door of the bathroom, you're also locking the door. By that, does that lock the door to the sink? Like, is it like one outside door for both, or is it two separate rooms? But Rav Belsky's nusach and Rav Moshe is that it depends if you do other things there or not. So, or people might sometimes wash for a suda there, whatever, not just for the bathroom. So I just want to point out that I think that the svora bittul is only possible if the reason that the bathroom itself is pater because it's not dira's covered. It has a shame dira, but it's not dira's covered. So then you could say that the other room, this netilas yadayim room, it becomes batal to that. If it was just a problem of like bizayin kisei hakodesh, then there wouldn't be shaykh the concept of bittul. That room itself is not pater; it's just bizayin kisei hakodesh. But since we say that it's in a dira's covered, it's a patur, and like Shach says, it's an isser on that room to put it. So maybe it's shaykh to say it's for a bittul that another room could be batal to it, and it's a patur. Let's end off with one last aura on Sif Hey, that we say that Makom Sheyesh Tinuf Gegon Shetinokus Mitzuyan Sham Tov L'Chasas Mezuzah Makom Tara Tov Lios Nires. So here the Taz points out that it's a mila to have the mezuzah seen, but it's not a chiyuv to have it seen. So in a place where the mezuzah can be stolen, if the goyim see it, and people say that they want to time that this should be pater because of that, the Taz says that's not a patur because you can etch out you can dig into the wooden doorway and put it in there, even though it won't be seen. It's only a hitter to be seen, but it's not ma'akev to be seen. So that's not a patur because the goyim will take it if you can possibly dig it in. It's not the best way to put it, but it's better to do that than not to get the mitzvah at all. And the other Nakuda we just spoke about, Diras Kavod. So the Shach points out over here, the Shitasa, the Shach in Yud Beis says that we're talking about a full room, like we said before, a full room, like the Ramah said from the Beis Yosef, a Dira Gemura, the house, it is a Diras Kavod. So by a room that is a Diras Kavod, be'etzem, just that you also do things that are teenage, you change diapers there or whatever, and that's not a reason to make it patur. Rather, you just have to make sure you're machase it, so it shouldn't be bizayin kisvei hakodesh. But it's not a patur because it's a diras kavod, it's a makam chiyuv. So that's what comes out with the contrast between Sif Dalad and Sif Hey and the Shach. Sif Dalad, it's patur be'etzem, and therefore usher. It's not a diras kavod. Sif Hey, it's chaya be'etzem. It is a diras kavod. Just you have a side problem that it's makam tinofis. So then that you take care of that problem by covering it, not by making it patur. And this the Shach is cholik on those that were knowing not to only put mezuzahs on all the doors of the house because of tinofis, and only on the front door. The Shach is totally cholik on that and says that that's not a patur at all. That's just a reason that you have to cover the mezuzah because be'etzem it's a diras kavod. Okay. So I think Thursday we'll take it from Sif Vav and try to see how much we can cover. I hope it didn't go too fast, but just trying to just get through as much as we can before we finish all this. I just want to point out in the tkufa that we're in right now, something to think about that we have. Baruch Hashem, we have Gedolei Ador Zalgozinza and Rochaim Kedievsky Shlita has told us that there are two things that we should be focusing on during this time. One is we should be focusing on Lashon Hora. Make a special chizuk learning Lashon Hora, because the Gemara in Erchin says that why is it that the Mitzvah is sent chutz l'machane? Why does it have to be chutz l'machane, away from everybody else? Because the Gemara says because he was marchik ish v'isha. He spoke Lashon Hora about a wife to a husband, about a husband to a wife. He distanced people, Jews one from another. And so, Mida Kenega Mida, he gets distance from everybody else. So Chaim's telling us that if we're supposed to be distanced from others, we have to be in seclusion from other people. There must be the shorish of everything really starts with Klai Yisrael, and so it must be that Klai Yisrael has been we've been distancing each other through Lashon Hora. So we have to be chazik during this time in Lashon Hora to bring Yidden back together again. And I'll just add to his words that we do extra things to look out for other people, make a phone call, say a kind word, check in with somebody, use this time to make a special bonding time with family and not to get upset at each other, but be careful to bring ourselves closer to each other. So then go the opposite of Lashon Hora, then we bring ourselves together. That also be able to allow us to then come back together again as well. We have to look at it that way. And second thing he said is a time to be mischazik and anivus. It brings a rush in Horius that it's protection from dangerous things. That if we work on anivus, which means we turn the other cheek when the times of what maybe we get a bizayon, somebody says an unkind word or says something that we want to stick up for our own covet, but we let it pass, we let it slide, and we just let things go on, and instead we work on nidus and nivus, and not being haughty. So then I think that's also so he brings the Rush says clearly that from the Gemara that protects us from dangerous things happening, not to need doctors, etc. But there's a Gemara that Rabba was really supposed to be the Rosh Hashiva, and he sat back and he wasn't. He was mochel on his covet and let Rabbi Yosef be. So because of that, for 22, there was a decree he was going to die if he became Rosh Hashiva in 2 years. Instead, he went 22 years. Rabbi Yosef was the Rosh Hashiva, and the entire time, Rabba didn't need a doctor at all for anything. So the Rosh says we see from here that working on a nivus, the times you can stand up for your covet, that keeps the doctors away. It's better than an apple a day. Working on it keeps the doctor away. And I think especially now that what lesson to be learned is that we're not in control. the entire world is turned on its head over a tiny little microbe. And we see that the Kadosh Baruch Hu wants something, then it can turn the world upside down. We're not in control, which is the greatest opportunity for anivus that we have, and not to inflate our egos unnecessarily. And these things together, says Reb Chaim, are a protection that we and our families should stay safe, Hashem, and we'll continue learning together for many healthy years to come. Kol Tov.